I've been working with LGBT on webinars in the communities to bring the three principles to communities that I see are, by society, there's such a thing called the pink pound, which means that it's all rich, successful people. But I've seen the other side where there's dysfunction, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, many different things going on, that even within its community itself, there's lack of support. I shared yesterday that I worked in sexual health. And when I decided that I was leaving there, a couple of guys from Brighton got in contact. They were writing monthly blogs. And they wanted to see what I was doing. And I said that I wanted to work within a community, that it was important to me, and just see what was happening. So here was men who were living with anxiety and depression. Their partners may have died. They were living with an HIV status. No one had lived to the age of 80 or 90, like people who are HIV negative. So there was no kind of role models that they could look at, well, I'll live to be old and grey. So there was another fear that they were actually taking on. So when I was working with this group, I learned such a lot. And what I saw was that was part of my so-called community. And I had no idea that was going on. And it got me thinking that when I shared yesterday that I was always from knee-high to a grasshopper, I'd be the one, it would be helping everyone. That how innately we all have that inside of us. We're all natural-born helpers. When you look at how every single person was created, look at how you were created. A sperm and an egg came together, and you're here. To me, that's a miracle. That I see every single person sat here right now is the miracle of life. And that miracle doesn't stop. It's working for you every single moment. It's allowing you to grow. It's allowing you to breathe. It's bringing your teeth. It allows you to stretch. It brings in your hair. For me, it takes it back out. But it's continually working with you to give you the best possible you in the moment. And the more we give ourselves space, we begin to see not what makes us up. Because I have a list of internal programs that I used to run. A lot of it was when I saw from a very early age that it wasn't safe for me to be true to me as someone who didn't understand what he was feeling. But when my younger brother came along 5 years after me, he was what I would call a boy. He loved football. He loved playing with cars. He loved doing the mindset of what boys should do. I didn't. So that scared me, that this freedom, this healer that I wanted to be, helping others, had conditions. And I lost myself to my conditions. I looked at what society said that I needed to be, because I wanted to be a good boy. I wanted to do everything it was right to help other people. And I guess I maybe went a little bit overboard because I wasn't the boy that perhaps my dad, or I made up what I thought my dad wanted me to be, then I'd be even better. Have you ever done that? And how exhausting it becomes. To keep herself in that cycle of wanting to be better and better and better. And I didn't have an end goal of what it would look like. But just if I was helping others, that's all I would worry about. Now, it's a done deal that that's impossible. Trying to help other people is where innocently I saw that I went wrong. Not as in reaching out to help, but thinking that I had all the answers. Thinking that I knew if I put a plaster over it, it would help it. I see now when I put a plaster over something, it's not the plaster it heals, it's the wisdom within. It's the magic within. It's the same wisdom that brought you here in the first place. It brought the sperm and the egg together and created you. And when I heard Sydney Banks say that wisdom is a purity of thought before the contamination of the human mind, boom, fireworks went off. I didn't know why, but I knew that it made sense. And what I loved about it is I thought, well, if he's saying it's true of everyone, maybe it is true for me. Maybe it is true. So I started seeing through this identity. I started seeing through even what the word gay is. And we laughed this morning as when I couldn't find my brown socks. And I says to Bernie, I can't possibly go and speak today. I'm going to speak about being gay, and I'm not coordinated because I don't have my brown socks. That's the stereotypical from head to toe. Yay. I said, well, if I run out of things to do, we can always do a bit of Kylie or a bit of Madonna. So there's the kind of jokes that I think the gay community, and the word gay is happy and free, and it's so far from it. When we look at still the dysfunction, when we look at the amount of young gay men as age as 12 are taking their own lives because they don't have the freedom of thought to be themselves. The amount of young women who are slitting their wrists, slashing their wrists because they don't have the freedom to be themselves. When you meet someone who identifies as being trans, is that a drag queen or is that a real one? The things it has to go through. People who are bisexual, oh, they're just being lucky. They want the best of both worlds. So we have labels that we make up, which puts blockages on that person expressing the miracle of life through them. And just like what I said, that I accepted the ones from society, we're constantly. This is the first time, and it's really, in a way, ironic, that I've ever stood up and outed myself in front of people in a conference. And this morning I had a little bit of thinking about that. But I realized that was not me. I just realized that was something that was just happening. And what came instead was what we're all standing here doing, sharing, is an action of love. Behind the human conditioning, soul, S-O-U-L, searching out universal love. We're all doing it. We're all breathing it. Being, we're human beings. Inside of us is the wisdom of the ages that knows no separation. It has no conditioning. But yet it has a life bringing your life in this form every moment. And the more I see that, the less I remember who I've made myself up to be. And every now and again, it kind of meets me as I'm walking around a corner, and it scares me. But then again, I remember. I remember that society acts as it is because we've all lost our way on believing that life is all out here, and that's important. So when those communities that Tony spoke about earlier on, and all the communities we're hearing, we were all seeing that love. We don't know how it's going to show up. But there was something that really stopped me sometime last year. And it's when I heard that there was a young man had gone into a nightclub in Orlando and shot gay men dead. And they were at the age when I was really beginning to have the courage to be true to me as my chosen lifestyle. And my first thought was like, oh my God, but if that would have happened to me, I was the happiest I was in that moment because I was with people who weren't talking about, isn't it horrible being this way? We were celebrating life. So that was my first thought. And then my second thought was, how did it get that way? How did it get that way that a young man went in and shot those men dead? Where are we not hearing? And then I started thinking a little bit like, well, actually, I have on my Facebook page who I'm in a relationship with, Tony. People are going to see that. What's that going to be like? And I stayed and thought a little bit. But then bit by bit, I started seeing on my news feed coming in how people were saying how upset and how unhappy they were about this happening. And what came into my mind was that the only way, on a much smaller scale, but it was like the time when I went to London to do my NLP training, was just after Princess Diana had died. And London was a ghost town. And then the world seemed to wake up in what looked like in a state of grief to the death of Princess Diana. But what I saw was that people dropped who they were. They forgot their skin color. They forgot their religion. They forgot their sexual preference or identity. They forgot their thinking, and they came together as what looked like grief. But I saw as they came together, expressing the love that they felt for someone who shone light out into the world. And I was seeing this on my news feed, that people were sharing their love. And that really got me. And what came to mind really I was glad I was sat down. I think I would have fallen around because it came with such a force. It was like, what else does love have to do to wake us up? Because what I've seen, that I can tell you all the stories of all the things, but it's the unlearning of who I've made myself up to be. That I see that the gift of mind, thought, and consciousness gives me every single moment. I see that thought is completely neutral until I do something with it. We can't stop thought. I was standing before, and I took a few moments, and I was looking out at the river, and the wind was blowing it, and it's all going in the one direction, but you could see little bits moving over. Was that freaking out? We're not working in perfect unity. It was just doing what it was doing beautifully. And I see sometimes that's what I do. And I see sometimes that's what others do. But I'm less invested because I know behind everything that we think we are, it's the same love. It powers what Dave beautifully talked about. It's the same love. It empowers me. It's the same love. It empowers you. Whatever works, whatever families you're a part of, we have got so lost in what life needs to look like. Our identities become so solid that we forgot that we're all living, breathing manifestations in the moment of creation. And I see any experience of life as a gift, where we get to meet ourselves like never before, moment to moment to moment. And we get to choose. Again, wisdom, mind isn't going to say, don't like you today because you didn't do what I told you to do. We are part of a system. And I think Jenny said it used to be a self-correcting. I didn't know that before. But I don't regret the journey that I've been on. That's one of the things that I truly love from seeing this. I see that everything has brought me to where I stand today. And of course, there's things that, if I could go back and change it, time travel. But we do. We time travel through the imaginary nature of thought. And sometimes we hook onto it and we keep ourselves, and it feels so real in the moment. And you cannot tell me that it's not real in that moment. And then I remember. Then I fall out of that illusionary state. And I'm back to the moment. When I realized that no one was out to get me more than I was out to get myself. What I hear, and I'll say it again, do not be a follower. Everything you're looking for is inside of you. I heard a passion and a truth, not because Sydney Banks said it, but I hear a passion and a truth from the words of Sydney Banks that resonates so clear. And when he said that this was the hope for all humanity, it's all humanity. Not just because you look a certain way or act a certain way. The people you pass in the street are the same as you. We're all using mind, thought, and consciousness. So my relationships with myself became so much more easier. My relationships with others became so much easier. I still have a very loving and supportive family. That was never part of my made-up illusion. That was never part of the possibility. So I see, or I saw, God, I'm really good at scaring myself. I have a degree in scaring myself. I can put myself on that roller coaster ride, which I hate roller coasters, but I can put myself on that ride. And sometimes it feels that, I'm going back to the days when it was 50 pence. I don't know how much it is nowadays, but I would give them £1.50 just to go on it 3 times, just to prove that I really was scared. And get off and say how scared it was and want to go back on again. And it always gets me. It's like, I laugh now when I see it, but people go on a roller coaster and they scream the whole way around it. So, my hope is with starting the webinars for, we've called it the LGBT community. And we started a meetup in London. And when I looked this morning, there's almost 600 people on that meetup. And it was interesting because I was thinking, well, actually, I'm not L, I'm not B, I'm not T. So how can I stand in front of people and talk as if I know what it's like for that community? But I know what it's like to be fearful. I know what it's like to be happy. I know what it's like to feel that I'll never be loved again or I'm unlovable. I don't have to know what it's like for them. But what I know is that same love is inside. And what I've seen, that this same wisdom, regardless of what I'm thinking, behind the scenes is creating a life of its own. And the right people and places just seem to fall in. That's all I know. And I was speaking to someone this morning, and they were saying about, with the principle, it's like, well, I've got it. And I says, well, you're lucky because I don't have the principles. I can tell you intellectually that this is what the 3 principles tell us what they are. But in the moment, I hear something, I feel something different, moment to moment. And that's what I love, that I don't have to rely on the manuals. I don't have to write down what Bill and Linda was saying beautifully yesterday or all the other speakers were saying. But I know that I can listen from a different place. I can listen from a place where I don't have to respond. And we've got so good at that in our society. Well, I know what's wrong with you because. And we get lost. So this was not what I thought I was going to talk about. But that's what I wanted to bring, was that we don't have to go into life with a list of how life needs to look like. Sometimes we have to, of course. We knew that we had to be here by a certain time and that we were speaking at this. Of course, that's life. But there's so much other things, this word space. We can give ourselves the invitation to see that in between each thought is a beautiful space, a neutral space. It has no conditioning. It knows no past and it knows no future. And it brings you alive in the moment. It's your spiritual birthright to be a presence in the world like never before. It's your gift, as Sydney Banks would say. Use it well.